Welcome in, Bears fans, to episode 9 of the Hallis Huddle podcast. I am joined now by my always new time co-host, Justin Onayemi. Wave to the fans.
Oh, hi, guys. I always forget we're on camera, too. But great to be back. I'm excited to break down preseason week 2 with you, Rob. Should we just jump right in, actually? Or
yeah.
Well, I want to say one thing first.
Okay.
For those of you who did watch or listen to episode 8, thanks for sticking through the long intro.
Yeah, so Jeremy used to do all of our editing, and part of the, his new job doesn't allow him to podcast, so obviously he's not able to edit. And I'm going through a little bit of a learning curve, but it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was just like, all right, it's done. But
I do think there are crossover fans that like our show and also like Funktown hip-hop. What was it now?
Yeah.
Funky... I don't know what it was.
Old,
but it was like 4 or 5 minutes.
Old school hip hop, yeah, something like that.
So thanks for hanging in there. Hopefully we deliver some good stuff last week and this week. So I just want to say, and it's like a repetitive thing I keep saying, it's hard to evaluate preseason. Things that you get excited about, you have to temper it a bit. But I found this week to be even harder to evaluate because I just thought Seattle was that awful.
Yeah, they're a bad team. Like 13, 14 penalties, I think they finished with.
And when we were talking last week on the show, it's exactly what I didn't want to see and was happy to not see with the Bears. Like the pre-snap penalties, the just careless mental mistakes. And
yeah, have they had any false starts yet? I don't think they had.
They had one pre-snap penalty. Yeah, they did. It was on that was a right tackle backup. I can't remember.
Julian Davenport, maybe?
I don't know. There was one, and
okay.
I think it was in the second half. So hopefully not a guy that's going to be
We're
playing.
not going to see him on a consistent
basis. Exactly. But we'll get into that. I mean, I think overall, still kind of positive. I was a little more critical of a few coaching and things on the field, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But overall, I still like that this team plays hard, is doing the little things that could make the difference. I mean, obviously, at the end of a game, it's just the score that matters. But, I think special teams and lack of dumb mistakes and a lot of other things could go in our favor and make this an interesting, fun season to watch.
Yeah, they're going to be a tough out, right? I just feel like whenever you have a well-disciplined team, a team that seems to be buying into what their coach is putting out, especially in year one, like I just feel like it's a tough team to beat. Sometimes you might lose the locker room in years 2 and 3 if it's not working. So the hope is that, we can win enough games this year to build on to 2023.
I agree with you. The reason I smiled when you were saying that is I just, for some reason, thought of year 1 with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, that didn't.
The honeymoon didn't last so long there, but this team looks nothing like that. And from everything you hear the players saying and, the coaching staff say, they're definitely in the honeymoon phase, but I think it's also coming out in the play.
Yeah.
And it's just preseason, obviously. But specifically, I mean, I think it's always something we like to do. You want to talk Justin Fields or bigger things first?
Let's zero in on Justin Fields, get that out of the way, and then we'll, maybe just talk offense in general, starters, and then we'll switch to defense, and maybe we can sneak in some of the backups too. So, so Justin Fields went 5 for 7. So definitely, one extra completion to last week, which puts him over that mark that I always try to hit, which sounds ridiculous when it's only one more completion.
When the sample size is low, I know. But you combine those two performances, it's a pretty good percentage.
It is, yeah. Didn't get any touchdowns, but did lead an opening drive field goal, and that was their only drive against Seattle. I think left an opportunity on the table. The one play, we talked about it a little bit yesterday when we were just kind of looking at some of the beginning plays. He had Equinemius St. Brown for the first down on that.
Who?
Yeah, ESB, right?
He was like a ghost. I forgot he even played, but go ahead. Fields definitely missed him.
I mean, let's touch on that, though. He was like the camp guy, right? He worked his way up to wide receiver 2. Like everyone was just giving it to Byron Pringle. Even before Pringle got hurt, ESB was the name. And does he have a catch?
I don't think he had a target in this game.
I don't think so either, but he should have on this play.
Absolutely. So talk about how Fields missed him on that play.
Yeah, so Fields rolls out to the left, and he's looking downfield. He's definitely got some pressure coming in on him, but he had plenty of time. And he kind of he could have ran and tried to get the first down, which would have been close. But instead, he just looks off ESB and tries to throw it to Mooney in the end zone, which is that going to become a problem? Like, he's going to only zero in.
They've done so much work in the offseason together, and they're this incredible tandem, so they want to make the crazy miracle play in the corner of the end zone when there's a way easier look in front of you.
It was 3rd and 4.
Now, I think an offensive lineman was called for being downfield there. Yes. But that's on Fields.
Yes.
He held it. There was plenty of space to run. They were blocking well. I agree with you. Every game... there's only been 2, but even thinking back to last year, he shows flashes where you just are impressed by his arm, you're impressed by his mobility, but then sometimes I feel like he doesn't know when he should run and he doesn't know when he shouldn't. And
there's times,
and there's another play that comes to mind, and I think Seattle may have bailed them out because they ended up jumping on the next play. That one where it was 3rd and 3. It looked at first look, it looked like the offensive line just totally was burned. But actually, you look at it, and Borum and Jenkins on the right side, we're going to talk more about Jenkins at right guard, they kind of got beat, but they did what they're supposed to do, and they flushed those guys further downfield, giving Fields the opportunity to step up. But instead, he just looked super panicked, kind of wiggled around, obviously did not fumble. I mean, ground can't cause the fumble. I don't know why there was any dispute there.
That was a bad Monday Night Football broadcast.
But that just looked like he didn't have he didn't have kind of the sensibility of what to do. But the play call, too, kind of worried me. It was 3rd and 3, and I rewatched that a few times. There were no routes that looked like they were the right kind of routes. Mooney went off to the right and kind of ran like a hitch. Herbert went to the left as kind of a option there, but everyone else was running deep, and maybe they were trying to spread the field, but there was nobody open near the first down. But Fields didn't even look like he was making reads. He was just panicked already. And I don't know if that's an O-line that's in shambles, because I don't feel that way overall.
I mean, they definitely need some continuity. Like, that's part of the problem, I think, too. Like, you originally had Larry Borum on left, Jenkins at right guard or right tackle, and then all of a sudden Braxton Jones comes out of nowhere, takes over the left tackle starting spot. Then you see Borum move to right tackle and Jenkins move to the second string. Then all of a sudden he's like 3rd string, not practicing,
maybe not in the NFL. We don't know.
Yeah, talking about possibly trading him. It was a very weird situation, and then all of a sudden he goes from 3rd string quickly to 2nd string, and then right to 1st string as right guard. I mean, it was like...
Well, you're right. There's been, in just a short time, a lot of who goes where, but ultimately they're going to lock in at some point. And I think they need to see what Lucas Patrick can do to kind of solidify the line, because even though I was kind of impressed with their run blocking, in pass protection, they're getting burned on stunts left and right, and I feel like having a veteran at center, not Mustafa, I'm sorry, I don't think that's a good look for him. And then their backup center was snapping the ball which way. Yeah. But, I think having Patrick there could be interesting, playing next to Jenkins and obviously Whitehair, a little bit more of a veteran there. We can talk a little later, or we can talk now about what you think the ideal 5 would be.
Let's just backtrack a little bit. What was your overall, I don't want to say grade, but feel for Justin Fields? Positive, negative, neutral?
I'm going to say it's overall positive, and this is going to sound like complete coach talk, but he protected the ball. His drive led to points, but there certainly are some things that they better look at on film and learn from. And again, I keep hearing and somewhat believing that he's the type of person that does get on the film and learn and take the coaching that comes his way. So I do think he left some plays out there. There was another one, actually was the one that was right before they did settle for the field goal, where this time they did have crossing routes going and could have possibly gotten the first down, whether that was a crossing route going to the right to Velus Jones, who was in motion, right, or crossing to the left. Komet got to come back to him. Really liked what I'm seeing there. But rather than looking at either of those guys who could have had a chance at a first down, he threw it to Herbert, who was well covered, couldn't have converted the first.
No.
And that was kind of disappointing. But, all in all, again, led to points. Some of the pressures I will put on the line. Some of them I'm going to put on Herbert for not being able to blitz cover, which Montgomery is good at. So you can't fully evaluate everything.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I didn't answer your question. Overall positive grade, still stuff to work on.
Okay. And I'm pretty much right there with you. I don't think that you could say anything was negative. You could pinpoint to certain things, but not like an overall sense. He did way more positive things, in my opinion, than negative. So just, ways to that side. So you mentioned him. You said we got to come back to him, and we'll throw it in here with Fields before we'll get back to the offensive line too, I promise. But Cole Kmet had a game.
Yes, he did.
He had 3 targets. One, it wasn't his fault that he didn't catch it because it was a bad pass, just bailing out.
Yeah.
But
better to not catch, actually.
Right. So we saw a tight end screen, which, by the way, we saw tight end screens, wide receiver screens, running back screens, and not only did we see them, we saw them go in the right direction, which is something we haven't seen. The blocking, it was fantastic.
Play action rollouts, which I think you're going to talk about with Kmet, right?
Well, yeah. So in his second one was a play action rollout, and we brought this up yesterday too when we were talking, like the difference that we're seeing with Luke Getsy and the difference between Luke Getsy and what we saw with Matt Nagy with his play designs is you saw 2 guys basically doing crossing routes. You saw Darnell Mooney on the lower half, and you saw Cole Kmet a little bit deeper. And the fact that they weren't in the same
plane.
Yeah, how many times do you see guys like they're in the same area? Like, who is he throwing it to? That's when tips usually happen, which leads to interceptions. It's a breath of fresh air.
That was actually just a wonderful play because you saw Mooney coming across, and he drew some attention. I think the linebacker that actually should have covered Kmet saw Mooney going and kind of was drawn up, but that gives Fields either read. Right. He made the right read. He actually settled, got his hips through, and made a good throw rather than throwing on the run, which just shows, again, fundamentals that are being taught and that he's taking up. But it was awesome to see with Kmet. And, hopefully his production this year is way, way up from what we've seen. I know he'd never got in the end zone last year, which hopefully will change. That's
kind of fluky, and I think that has to change. And he had over 600 yards last year. I can't say that he had a bad season at all. Had he gotten in the end zone just a few times, like, people would have looked at him completely different. But I got to throw just a quick shout out here to my guy Peter over at the Bumcast podcast, the Bumcast. Anytime I mention Cole Kmet, I've been told that I have to tag you or, shout you out, like just call you out for your harsh criticism here, calling him cement hands, because the guy can catch. Okay. He might not be Travis Kelce. He never was going to be Travis Kelce, but he can catch. So just got to point that out to him real quick.
And he's a tough guy to bring down, which I know tight ends in general are.
That was a tight end screen.
Yeah.
He got the first one.
Oh, yeah. 5 more yards were just him breaking tackles. And
made sure to make a note of that.
I like when he does it. I don't like when Mooney does it.
No, that hit. Not in the preseason.
Not ever, I would say. But, hey, he got right up, and, that's why I never, ever played football. But, I'm glad he's playing for the Bears. The one knock, though, on Cole Kmet never going down is usually what leads to his fumbling. You're right.
So he needs to keep better hold of that as he's fighting through.
Because other teams are doing what they've seen the Bears do, and we're seeing the Bears do this season is go for that ball.
Yeah, Kyler Gordon.
All right, let's talk Kyler Gordon.
Okay.
It was our first chance to see him in game action. We'll come back to the O-line.
We're just teasing. This is a master tease.
We will. Either way.
No, let's keep going. We're going to keep teasing them.
Stay for more for O-line talk.
If you can get through our 4 minutes of intro.
Then you can get through anything. So Kyler Gordon, it was our first chance to see him. Was super excited. It's his hometown, I guess, where he got to play his college ball. And maybe that actually led to some jitters. I don't know, because it was a mixed bag with Kyler Gordon. You want to talk good? You want to talk bad? Or just the overall product?
Yeah, so the good things that I saw was his coverage was pretty superb. I did note that he was actually playing in the nickel spot They had Lamar Jackson on the outside. But he's a rookie, first NFL game. Even like his coverage wasn't perfect either. But it was good enough where I felt fine going forward. You mentioned the peanut punch trying to get the ball out. I didn't see anyone doing it more than Kyler Gordon. Not only did he make one happen, right? But I saw him doing it continuously, even like towards the end of plays, even sometimes after the whistle was blown, just to see what happens.
Hey.
But yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on two things you said. First of all, I don't know that I would call his coverage superb. That he was beat on a play that I think they would have converted to first down. But again, Seattle, all these penalties. I think it was one where they had the hands to the face.
Yeah, you're right.
He got burned on that. Not burned, but beat. And you're going to get beat from time to time. But I just want to point out to any of the viewers that, if he ends up playing nickel corner, that's not a demotion, or that's not – because I think when he was drafted, it was the excitement of him across from Jalen Johnson as 1 and 2. But in this league, nickel corner might as well be your starter. In many cases, he's out there far more than you're going to see their base 4-3. But the thing you hear about him coming out of college is that he's a willing tackler as a corner, and then he misses the one tackle he really could make a difference on. I thought the defense overall, again, under Eberflus, it looks like they fly around, but kind of like we saw with some Lovie Smith coach teams, they're flying around and they're missing tackles.
They're over pursuing.
Or they're just missing tackles because he got burned on that. It was awesome to see Muhammad chase the guy down 30 yards downfield, but that's a guy who came with Eberflus from the Colts. But that athleticism and that effort in a preseason game from a veteran, real awesome to see.
That was also a missed tackle by Kyler Gordon.
Yeah, exactly. But first time seeing him out there, I think he had some rookie moments. But I think you see talent, and unfortunately, we didn't get to see him with Brisker out there. And the news on Brisker, we're going to talk about later in the show. I think all in all, pretty much you look at the rookies they've brought in, and it's early, but I tip my hat to Poles for identifying talent because whether they had no first-round picks, as we all know, and it looks like with Gordon and with Brisker, you got some talent, some potential, like we said, maybe not a starter, but a contributor. Braxton Jones might be a starter.
I mean, that's insane.
Velus Jones, I think we'll talk about him, but we can't teach O-line more, so we can talk about him after the O-line.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up Braxton Jones, right? So that's a perfect segue back.
Now the tease is over. All right. How about this? I want to know, based on this game and what you've seen, who your starting five should be. And you can kind of give a little analysis from the game. And then I wonder, I think we're going to have pretty similar.
All right. So Braxton Jones is going to be my starting left tackle, which shocks the hell out of me. I liked Riley Reif signing. I liked the Riley Reif signing. I thought for sure he was going to be a starter based on how they were paying him, but it is very heavily incentive based. I think his base salary is only like $3 million. So I guess it's not a guarantee that he's going to be the guy. They've said from the beginning it's going to be, best man.
Yeah.
Whoever proves it is going to earn it. And he's done that. He's worked his way up from a 1-10 Big Sky conference.
Wow. It's incredible.
Could not believe it. But
so you think that's our left tackle? All right.
I mean, by default, I think too. I mean, not that he hasn't done a good job. I think he's earned it. But I mean, they don't have anyone better at this point. Cody Whitehair's a lock for me at left guard. I mean, he's just your prototypical, I'm not going to be great, but I'm going to make some mistakes, but at other times I'll look fantastic. And, I have no problem with him there. Lucas Patrick is going to be my starting center. Sorry, Sam Mustipher. I'm praying that Patrick is back by week 1. At least Mustipher did better than Dieter Iselin. So,
some of his stuff came after he got injured, so I'm going to just...
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
That's why your snaps...
I don't know if the leg injury really hurts the snapping, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And then right guard, I'm putting in Tevin Jenkins. I got to see what he's going to become. He is a mauler, which to me is typically your interior linemen are those guys. So I want to, he's the guy that moves with his athleticism. He can get to the second level.
Mm-hmm.
I think he makes more sense than a 32, 33-year-old Michael Schofield at this point, based on what I've seen. I mean, Schofield,
based on what we all saw last week.
I mean, he's definitely looked better since that one horrible sack. Like, that was just bad. But he did, settle in, and I kind of was hoping he was just shaking the rust.
He's a veteran,
exactly. And then I'm gonna put Larry Borum at right tackle. I want to see those two grow. I mean, if they grow, that's what's best for this franchise. And you got Riley Reif, who's definitely a legitimate backup if you need him. So
it's funny. I completely agree. I have every single player you named was who I was thinking of. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to say too much more. I'm going to toss it back your way with something. But, you signed Schofield, you signed Reif. As veterans, you would assume they kind of would probably get starting roles when you saw so little in terms of locked-in positions. But right now, based on performance you see in these preseason games and obviously what's going on in training camp, I think the 5 you named are the 5 they should go with. But early on, if Borum's not cutting it, if Jenkins isn't cutting it, then you have those veterans to plug in. But what I want to toss back to you is the big news with Jenkins is up to this point with last regime and even this one, it's been left tackle or it's been right tackle. And now he's moving into guard. But what I wanted to say is, I know you do a whole bunch with draft prep, and you were big on Jenkins, I believe, coming out of the draft. And there were some teams that thought he was a guard, and there were some teams that maybe thought he was a tackle. I think the Bears drafting him and how they used him last year, they were on the side of he's a tackle. But I don't know what you thought. And now that it looks like right guard might be the spot he can kind of go with, what are your thoughts?
I mean, originally I had him as a tackle. I had him as a right tackle only. I never thought he could be a left tackle. I should say, I'm not opposed to them moving him to right guard. I think it's the right move, especially for the way the team is. But I still stand by the fact that I think he could be a good right tackle depending on what type of system he's in. I already said it. Like, maulers are typically better on the inside. So I know some people thought he was a little bit undersized, which definitely played a part in that. But this is the Ryan Poles.
Yeah, they like a little undersized lineman.
Yeah, in fact, Larry Borum, he was overweight for them, so had to lose some weight. I'm good with them moving him inside, so I'm good with that. Coming out, I for sure saw him as a right tackle. I also didn't know about the back issues, to the point that clearly teams probably did. That's probably why he was falling, but I was happy with the pick at the time, and I'm gonna, I got to stand by it. So
yeah. So last week we kind of did a segment, and we're gonna bring it back a little bit at the end of this show. But worst case, best case, and when we were talking Tevin Jenkins, I felt bad saying it, but worst case was he's not sticking in the NFL very long, at least not on this team. And maybe, you never know after you cut a guy loose if he picks up anywhere else. But I don't know if it's feeling that pressure, but here's your opportunity. It's not the position maybe you wanted to play or that you've played in the past, but you have the potential to make it at that position. And I think we saw some good things, and I do also think that if he's playing right alongside Lucas Patrick, maybe that helps him develop at that position. Because what they always say about O-lines is you just need that continuity. You need to play together and be a unit. So we both kind of have the same 5. I think that's what the coaching staff's 5 most likely would look at like. I mean, obviously we're not privy to a lot of the information they have. But I'd be very interested to see that 5 roll and develop. And if they don't quite develop, you got those veterans to plug in.
They have a tough test week 1.
Oh gosh, I know. I'm a little worried about what Bosa is going to make of Braxton Jones, and he actually moves around a bit on the line, so he'll exploit whatever weakness is perceived out there. So why don't we take a break here, and then we got a lot more to still talk about, and maybe some season outlook stuff too.
And we're back. Again, episode 9 of the House Huddle. We're doing a recap on the Seattle Seahawks the Chicago Bears victory over the Seattle Seahawks. It was a nice win. I know it's preseason. I'll quickly throw the stat out there that I saw from Larry Mayer, but the Chicago Bears went 43-0 against the opponent between their last game and this game. They had a 19-0 run against the Chiefs to finish that game out, and then a 24-0 run here against Seattle. So I know it's preseason. I know they're backups, but let me tell you, that's pretty impressive, whether you're playing backups or not, because your backups are playing backups. It's just as easy for those other teams to score. So
I'm hearing they should be shooting the Super Bowl shuffle, or
I mean, I got them winning more than the 5.5 wins that I'm seeing now. That
is that on the Vegas
the
books?
odds? Yeah, it used to be 6.5. It's dropped to 5.5.
It's dropping.
I kind of want to go pound the table.
Oh wow! I'm not a gambler. Except for in our UFFL, that could be a whole episode one time, maybe.
Yeah, we should do that.
Plug. Shout out to our UFFL. Shout out to our UFFL competitors. It's an ultimate fantasy football league that Rob and I co-own a team and love it. But I mean, I think this team is looking better than expected. And I kind of laughed when I heard people say they'll be fighting for the number 1 pick. None of us know anything. Like, anything can happen. But this just looks like a team that's going to stick around in games. I said it earlier, and I think it's a good segue to one of the players we want to talk about. But, the final score is the final score. But how do you get to that score? You limit your turnovers. You win time of possession. You have a good starting field position. So you look at some of the things they've done and some of the things they haven't done. They've done a good job in punt coverage. Yeah. They've done a good job in the return game. They're limiting their penalties. They're limiting their turnovers, even though they've put the ball on the ground a few times. They've been lucky enough to recover some of those. Those are all things that can help you win a game that you shouldn't, or win a game that you should. So the guy I want to talk about, though, is Velus Jones. Again, just like Kyler Gordon, we didn't get to see him in week 1. What did you think?
I mean, he comes out, he fumbles. He had a decent return. I mean, he got close to the 30, if I recall.
Yeah, from the goal line.
Yeah. But then fumbled it. Thank goodness he recovered it right away. So we're gonna just kind of give him.
It didn't happen.
It's a mulligan. This is golf. He had the jitters, and he picked up right from there. Not a lot on offense. Had a couple times where I saw him targeted. Didn't do anything with the first team as far as catches go, but was big in the return game. He had a nice punt return too, right? If I recall.
Yep.
50
down that left sideline, 40-something yards, I want to say. 42 maybe?
I think I wrote 54.
I thought he was going to the house if that blocker didn't get in his way, but that just speaks to that speed that he has. I mean,
I can't read my chicken scratch, but I think it was a 54-yard return.
So, here in Chicago, we know punt returners. I think we have the best one that ever did it, and I'm not comparing him to that guy, Devin Hester. He looks more like a Cordell Patterson, bigger guy, and when he makes the decision to go, he goes. And so it was great to see that. I think that can turn around some games. Obviously not if you're putting the ball on the ground. He did, but we won't harp on it too much unless it becomes a common thing, like with our friend Daz Newsome.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know if it's totally on him. His own blocker ran into him, but it just doesn't look good when 2 weeks in a row you drop one. But you talked about Velus on offense, and I just want to ask you, there was a bubble screen that he caught and looked good on. They haven't run any plays where they've allowed him to run the ball in like jet sweeps or anything, but you certainly see that would look dangerous.
Yeah.
And you don't want to show too much in the preseason. And actually, you and I were having a talk off the set, I guess.
Yeah, pre-show. Well,
yeah,
pre-show.
Pre-show. We talk a lot. We're good buddies. But I kind of thought the coaching staff had some questionable play calls. Twice on 3rd and 6, they ran the ball. One of the times it worked for a first down. So I'm like, that's a weird call, but hey, nice job. And the other time, I think it led to a 4th and short. But you actually talked me off the ledge a bit and had a theory that maybe that was them not wanting to show certain packages. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very typical for a team to be in like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6, 2nd and 4, like those mid to long down in distances. And I just feel like we saw some 3rd and 6 runs. And it happened in the first game, it happened in this game. And I'm just wondering if Luke Getsy is just not trying to throw it all out on the table at this point. Those are crucial downs, and you want to keep your opponent guessing for the most part. I mean, the Bears are very, very cautious with what they allow people to view and throw out there, whether it's the right decision or not. We have other teams that literally just stream their whole entire practices and they go, to the playoffs and win Super Bowls. So I'm not like overly sure they're going down the right path, but
Vince Lombardi and the sweep to, tell them you're doing it, you still should be able to execute kind of philosophy.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, Rob. And I think when you have a brand new regime, it's one of the advantages you have, at least earlier in the season, is maybe teams don't have on tape what they need to know what your tendencies are going to be. It could also be that they like to call what the defense might not expect.
Yeah.
And I think with the running backs we have, whether you're talking about Montgomery, whether you're talking about Herbert, I don't know who your three is. I don't know how bad Ebner's injury is. But you have guys that maybe can execute that, and it would catch a team off guard. But I thought those were kind of some fishy calls. And then we praised them in game 1 of the preseason for a challenge that they made that was great. And I think we got to talk about the challenge they didn't do in this second game.
Yeah. So Matt Eberflus was asked that question. I can't recall who asked it, but somebody did their job and asked that question. And he said that they didn't have enough time. I was actually very disappointed in his response.
That's the wrong answer.
He said that 2 of his coaches said it was not a catch. They only got one view of it. I don't know if that's Seattle, like their television crew. One of their things of being the home team, like, is it, do they get to distribute which angles they get to see first? I'm not 100% certain on that, but you would think you'd kind of have your own crew. But yeah, I mean, it was clearly a catch.
I mean,
and even if it wasn't,
yeah, like to me, I have a few problems with it. So first of all, to say that you only had one view and we at home had at least 2, hey, for $100K, I'll be your replay guy. Give me a cell phone into the coach. If we're watching at home and we're seeing more than they are, that's a problem. So right off the bat, I have a problem with that. But I also think you have to look at challenges kind of like you're playing Texas Hold'em, and to me, you're pot committed at that point.
Yeah.
It's the difference between 3rd down and 4th down. Your guy, which this is not always the best gauge because receivers like their stats, but his initial reaction was, I definitely caught this ball.
Yep.
And granted, that was Coulter, I believe, right?
Yep. He's
not in a position to go demand that they replay it because that might be the
he's not
final thing he does as a member of the Chicago Bears.
Allen
But
Robinson or even a Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, but his initial reaction was, I caught it. We could clearly see in the 2 replays we saw, 2 angles that he caught it. And what did you have to lose? And not only that, Rob, the fact that they took a delay of game to not do it. So it was just a missed opportunity. And since last week we praised him for making the right call there, I think this one goes in the loss column. And, coaches, I don't know. I think there is a stat on it. Like, there obviously is a stat on it. And I forget, I think, isn't Andy Reid horrible at challenges? Or some coach that's a legendary winner is actually bad at this. But to me, if we're going to call out the ones they get right, we should call out the ones they get wrong. And they definitely got this one wrong. You throw the flag. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But at that time, and it's a meaningless preseason game, your other theory was they wanted to see their defense play.
Yeah, no, that wasn't my theory.
Oh, I don't want to give you credit then.
No. That was like the Reddit rabbit hole theory.
Okay. There's all sorts of conspiracies out there. But with Seattle 3 and outing as often as they were, maybe Eberflus just wanted to see his prize defense play a little more. Yeah. And their punter has been doing a heck of a job winning field position for the team.
We talked, rookies contributing.
Yeah.
People were mad to see
using a 7th round pick on a punter.
Yeah. I mean, they traded their 6th that they got from San Diego for Khalil Mack and then traded that back to them for their 2 7ths, right?
That's right.
So that's the reason why we even have Trenton Gill here in Chicago. So, but he's been fantastic at putting the ball inside the 20. Like,
absolutely
fantastic. And it does go to the punt coverage too, because a lot of those have been fair catches. or they just only gain a couple yards. So,
there's a couple more shout outs. Maybe we just do quick shout outs of the game and then go to some season topics that weren't from the game but are really important for us to talk about.
Yeah, Jack Sanborn again, one of the guys who helped lead tackles, another 7-tackle game for him. And then
so on Hall of Fame watch, what are we
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty
still
sure,
on pace.
I'm pretty sure that they could just tell Roquan, I'm sorry, we're done. Jack Sanborn's got your job. I mean,
I have a different take on Roquan, but we can talk about that in a minute.
Well, maybe it's, actually, technically that would be Nicholas Morrow's job because Sanborn plays the middle. And he plays the middle better, and I think he would be on the weak side or even the strong side. But DeMarcus Gates looked good, too. Those two are just flying around, and that goes back to the hits principles and the whole Matt Eberflus discipline. But those are my two guys.
I got another. I just got one guy. Sam Kamara. He was on the team, then he was off, and he's back, but he's flying around. He's getting a sack. I actually had to double take for a second because he's wearing that tight ass jersey with number 46, and I'm like, what's going on here? 46? You're a safety. You're a fullback. You're not a DN. Get that man a number. I know the number rules are different now, but that didn't look good. But his play looked pretty good. So not sure if he's making the squad. It's just awesome to see the effort that's out there. And, these guys are either trying to make this team or make some other team or make a practice squad. So kudos to them. And the team you're going against should be doing the same thing, and our guys are doing it better. So
there's so many times you see guys who get cut, and then all of a sudden you see the team that played them in the preseason either claim them.
They whooped our butt. So.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, well, we got an inside angle. We saw what he could do. We think he's going to fit our system, and then they bring him in. So it doesn't always work out, but.
So I think we kind of definitely did a thorough job covering a meaningless preseason game there, but let's talk big picture.
2-0.
2-0. Super Bowl shuffle next week. So there are two big stories that I think we need to talk about from a season outlook perspective. And the first one is Roquan Smith ending his hold in, practicing with the team, and basically saying that they're going to cut, well, he represents himself, but they're going to cut off negotiations, and he's just going to play out this year on a prove-it deal and bet on himself. So, what does that mean to you, Rob? Last week we were in a totally different place, not knowing this. With this new information, what's your outlook?
I have gone from you have to pay the guy. Granted, I laid out what I thought he was worth last week. To all right, this is just not going well. Let's trade him, get something for him. To now, all right. He's back. Let's put on the uniform. It's done. The drama's over. He's going to bet on himself. The Bears had the leverage. We knew they had the leverage. Not only is he under contract this year, it's not like a franchise tag situation.
They still have the leverage.
Right. So he wouldn't get paid. And then you have the franchise tag for 2023 and 2024.
Right.
I mean,
the thing I don't understand, but I also do understand with the franchise tag is you get a nice contract that year.
Yeah,
but you don't get the long-term security.
Right. But he did reference that in his press conference. He was asked about the franchise tag. Hey, the Bears can franchise tag you in 2023. Well, how would you feel about that? And he's like, I think that's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And they said, that's about double what you're making this year. He's like,
exactly. So I have two ways to look at this, basically. So to me, it's nice that it gave a little bit of closure to the situation. I'm not going to say complete closure because you still just don't know what might happen. But the way I see it is Roquan now has something to prove because he's basically auditioning for 32 teams or maybe only 31 if in his mind he feels betrayed by the Bears and takes them off the list. So he's got to put up the numbers to show that he's worth the kind of money he turned down and then some. That's my outlook, that now he can just go out there and ball. And what's good for him is actually going to be good for the Bears. That's my rosy, this could be a great situation for both the player and for the organization. But I do hear some people talk about, and I don't know, I want to toss it back to you to see what you think, but sometimes people say that a guy who's in a situation where he doesn't have a long-term contract isn't going to do that little extra thing, watching out for injuries and such. But to me, then you're not going to put those monster numbers that are going to warrant that contract. So where's the balance, Rob?
If you're watching this on YouTube rather than listening to it, I started smirking as Justin was saying that, because it's exactly what we saw with Allen Robinson last year, right? Like, he did not have that long-term security. He knew he was not coming back. He, in my opinion, I mean, you can't completely half-ass it because you're going to get hurt.
Exactly.
But,
it's not a game you can.
But he didn't do the extra, right? We
make
saw
a block.
We saw it on that Justin
Yes.
Fields run. That would have been a touchdown. I mean, just do something. You didn't even have to like hit the guy hard. Just stand in front of him. He just kind of just let him go.
Right.
You're seeing that though with the wide receivers now, right? Like, these guys are blocking. Even I got to give Daz Newsome credit on the touchdown to the fullback Jake Tongs.
Tongs, great name.
He made a beautiful block, then did his release, and if it wasn't for that touchdown would not have happened.
You're right.
But those are the little things that you see that guys that are on, in that situation, especially superstars, they're not going to risk it as much.
But playing not to get hurt at linebacker seems like different. You're going to get hurt. Yeah, and I honestly, you're better with the numbers. I don't remember the exact deal that Robinson ended up getting, but I don't feel
it was less.
Exactly.
He's making 16 and a half.
But that's my point, is he didn't perform in a way that would have had 31 teams bidding for his services.
Right.
And Allen Robinson's younger than I think a guy going for his third deal normally was, because he came in the league very young.
Right.
But Roquan is like basically in his prime. And so if he can put up a real strong number, I mean, this guy, I know he didn't get to as many Pro Bowls as maybe us Bears fans think he deserved, and part of that might have been overall team play. But then I think all-pro second team or something like that. I mean, he's shown the potential to be an absolute difference maker. And we've talked about how that position, there might be almost like too much of depth across the league and not enough value on it. But if he puts up monster numbers this year, the Bears can look at that and say he's worth the franchise tag, or maybe he's worth a long-term deal and his agent thinks differently or whatever. Maybe they come to terms, and maybe there's team success as part of this too. If he sees this team with all this cap room and a young kind of roster that's going in the right direction, now maybe he wants to sign long-term, and they want that too. Or he's auditioning for the other teams. So I'm trying to look at it that way, that now it's best case for both. It might not be that way the whole time. And one other thing, one other possibility, maybe he's a mid-season trade.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a time where there's a trade deadline, obviously, and I felt like there never used to be mid-season trades.
Or
but
it
now,
would be like your third or fourth wide receiver for like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, not a difference-making thing. But over the years, lately, you see some big names sometimes getting traded mid-season. And
Miller.
Yeah. If some team thinks Roquan's the difference between eking into the playoffs and actually being a true contender, and if the Bears are not a team that's really competing for that kind of thing, maybe now you up his trade value.
That's one thing too. I've always felt like the trade deadline comes a little too soon in the NFL. It's like, especially now, like you're going to 17,
so many teams can
you're
make
probably going to be going to 18 games at some point. Like it's like week 5. Like it's like the beginning of November. I guess that's
I'm only basing it on Madden, but I thought it was week 8.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but that's in Madden. It is.
I don't know. It just seems like and I know it's like the midpoint, but it's just, I don't know. It seems like you said, there's so many more teams now. You have 7 teams on each conference that make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes, like you're not going to have a trade because teams think that they're still in it. I bet Ryan Pace and Ryan Poles thought they were still in it last year because they were still in the hunt, like forever on all of the TV. Did I say the wrong?
Yeah,
names?
you said Ryan Poles and Ryan Pace, and the Bears didn't want to spend money to change too much of their name plates or something.
Oh man, I haven't even been drinking. I mean, too many Matts and Ryans. Let's be honest.
Yes, that's coincidence, or they have a weird fetish or something. I don't know what that is, but so I think the Roquan news is welcome news, because the longer he was going to hold that out or hold in or basically not play, you just weren't going to be sure that he'd be physically ready in week one. Because when he had his holdout as a rookie, didn't he get hurt in week one or tweak something in week two?
He only played,
or
I think,
like
12 games that year.
Something like that. So now for him, with still, 3 weeks till the season actually begins, hopefully he'll be in tip-top shape and motivated to just ball out. So,
yeah, it's definitely a positive. Like I said, hey, we're back. Let's just ignore all the other shit. Like, get your jersey on, get out there. I want to see some plays.
And actually, something I've been hearing reported, and if you watch the game and can read into what you see on the sidelines, his teammates seem to still like him. And when they have these holdouts and hold-ins, I think the other players know it's a business and don't take it sourly. So, he'll get in there, be a leader of this team, and play well.
When your superstars make more money, you make more money because it just trickles. I hate this.
That's why he said he didn't want to take a bad deal because of all the other linebackers.
Yeah. And I hate the phrase trickle down, but like in the NFL, the higher, as salaries go up, then your guys who are lower, their salaries tend to go up also. So
that's true. That's why I didn't know, and you're really good at it, but like whatever deal they were offering, I think part of the issue was backloading some of the money, and I get that. But it makes sense for a team to do that because the cap keeps going up. It's going to be less of a hit at that time, even though it might be a higher number. And they don't guarantee any of it and are going to play games and cut people. That's the one thing I wish the league would just kind of the players union could maybe negotiate better. But
I think that was my big thing too. Is he talked there was de-escalators. So like my whole thing is you got to. I'm not for that. Like I'm all about incentivizing and not punishing. So if you got to start at a lower number, incentivize them to get higher. That's what I would prefer to see.
Sometimes I'm nervous that teams do shady things to not let a guy hit his incentive kick-ins.
Yeah.
I don't know the famous one, but when they know you're 3 completions away and they pull you in the third quarter of the last game or something like that.
I think it was like a percent. Like the guy had to play a certain amount of snaps, like a percentage of the season, and like it was like just a few snaps away and didn't get played.
That's frustrating stuff, but it kind of fits with just do whatever screws the player and that kind of thing. So one other season story I think we should quickly talk about, and then maybe we take another break here. But Brisker did not play in game 2 of the preseason. It would have been nice to see him and Gordon together, the 2 second-round picks of this year. And we knew he was out with an injury. I think initial reports were that it was a minor thumb injury, but now we're finding out it actually required surgery. And the outlook is he could or should, I don't know which word it is, be back by week 1. What are your thoughts on how this might affect him and how it might affect the team?
I don't know if it's the same injury, but it reminds me of the Lucas Patrick situation because his was also a thumb, if I recall. That I think was 6 weeks. So I haven't looked into the specific injury. In fact, what I've read on Jaquan Brisker, it wasn't listed. Maybe it's out there now because it's been a little over 24 hours. But if it's the same injury and it's 6 weeks, that's not going to be week 1.
Well, unless, snapping the ball as a center with a thumb versus Brisker we talked about how he's the old school safety. He probably wants to put a club on and just start wailing on people with that thing. But
at some point, he's also known for being more of a ball hawk, at least in regards to and I compare him to Adrian Amos. I expect him to have more than 2 interceptions in a season. I think he'll be anywhere between 3 to 5. Maybe have an outlier season of 7 or 8. But
some of them are just if the ball gets tipped your way.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he could definitely put a club on. Is not going to be able to catch the ball as well. But if he can do that, is Jaquan Brisker with a cast not able to maybe intercept the football but still play everything else to his abilities better than say DeAndre Houston Carson as backup? I would probably say yes.
But at the same time, I don't want to see a guy playing out there I get it. No one's ever 100% in the NFL, I would say. Maybe in week 1 and then never again. But I don't want to see a guy who's young and who potentially could be an impact player for your team, not just this year, but into your future, going out there and causing worse damage if really sitting and missing a game or 2 is going to be better for him. But, I'm just going to trust the report that said he could be ready week 1 and just hope for that.
Yep.
But the NFL, it's the next man up. And I think what we're seeing with the Bears in the looks in preseason is they're coaching these guys to just be out there flying around and making plays, no matter who you are, no matter what number you're wearing. Sam Kamara, get that man a number. That's the new hashtag. Get that man a number. My goodness. Or he could play safety. He's wearing 46.
There you go.
Get, Chris Harris, little Chris Harris.
I don't know if he's got the speed, but we know he can hit.
That's right. So those were the two season stories I wanted to touch on. You got anything else?
No, I think let's take a quick ad break and we'll come back. And
well, do you want to tease into the ad break? We had something from week 1. We promised, or week 1 show, episode 8. We had promised something in episode 9.
So we're gonna come back with our best case and worst case scenarios, and as I said last week, we're gonna make it about the Hallis Huddle, which could get a little dark. I mean, let's see where we go with it. So,
all right, after the break,
we'll be back.
All right, and we are back here at the Hallis Huddle, episode 9. I don't normally get to do the intros back from the breaks, but I got to learn because Rob said he's not going to be here a couple weeks, and
Rob is going to be missing opening week of the NFL season and week 2 against the Green Bay Packers. Who is this guy?
I might. We just teased. We're going to end with worst case, best case. I might tie that in actually. So. Well, if you did, whether you did or didn't, we'll kind of quickly explain the premise here. But last week we introduced a new segment called Worst Case, Best Case, and we based it off of a show that Rob and I both like, This Is Us, where two characters, when they're prepping for something, they're not sure how it's going to go. As a way to kind of clear their minds, they just lay out what's the absolute worst that can happen. It gets pretty dark pretty quick, yeah. And then I think that puts them in a good headspace because they're like, well, at least it won't be that.
Exactly.
And I don't know if we did a good job. You did last week with your Justin Fields, basically having a close to Hall of Fame career with the Green Bay Packers as the worst case scenario. That would be devastating as a Bears fan. So we teased it last week that we were going to do the same thing, worst case, best case scenario, but for this podcast, the Hallis Huddle. So I'll go first. And I'm going to start with my worst case? What do you think? Yeah. I'll go with my worst case. All right. So, worst case scenario for the Hallis Huddle podcast. You said last week we have millions of subscribers.
Yes.
I don't know if you were rounding up or
hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe again.
Hit the bell. But I think the worst case scenario is people hear this, or maybe they heard a little too much of our intro last week and they just aren't feeling the vibe, and we start getting, more than your average hate on Twitter, although that comes with the territory, I believe. People who viewed in and actually see our faces make dartboards out of it and are throwing things for our takes. I don't know. I think we've been pretty on the ball with some of our takes, but worst case scenario is just we can't get this thing going. Rob's missing week 1 and week 2, and the Bears just aren't playing like a team. Like everything's been so nice to talk about now, but they start becoming crap and not anything anyone wants to talk about or listen to, and that's the end of our podcast as we know it. So that would be my worst case scenario.
End of the podcast.
Exactly. I will not sing. That will really end. That will really end things. Worst case scenario, Justin sings on the podcast. Okay, but best case scenario. This is where I think this one might shine a little bit. All right. So, best case scenario is just flip it. Like people start tuning in because of our segments and all sorts of cool ideas we're going to toss out this season. Bears are playing winning football and exciting football, and this just becomes a hot listen and watch on YouTube. This segment in particular came from This Is Us, And in this best case scenario, some of the producers of the show actually start catching wind. And so they decide to do a spinoff of This Is Us called This Is Them.
Okay.
You're played by Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, nice.
Canada's finest.
My wife will appreciate that, I think.
And I had to do research to see who would play me. I mean, let's be honest, there's not as many actors that look like me, but I think I found my guy. Do you know who AJ Nadeau is?
AJ Nadeau? No.
He played Samir in Office Space.
Okay.
And I think he's actually, I looked him up on IMDb and Wikipedia, and he's actually from Evanston.
Oh,
so
wow.
Local product. But I think they play us in a spinoff of This Is Us called This Is Them, where they talk sports.
Nice.
And hopefully we get some royalties or something like that. I don't know what comes with that, but that's the best case scenario, that this thing takes off. The producers of This Is Us decide to make a show called This Is Them.
I like this.
And, we go big. So that's the best case scenario for this podcast.
I like that. It's going to outshine mine. I feel like I'm kind of going down the same or similar path. So I'm going to start best case and go to worst case because I'm a pessimist. My wife will tell you. So I will throw it out there. We, again, are doing great. Those 15 followers that we have right now really do become millions of followers, subscribers on YouTube. And we become nationally syndicated. We're on Sirius. We're competing against the ESPNs of the world, doing a better broadcast, obviously.
Oh, we didn't get to talk that.
I teased it a little bit earlier, but
can I just say my favorite part of the broadcast that was bad?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is when they're doing the sideline reporting, interviewing Justin Fields, and they cut away because she said a touchdown was scored, and then the ball's at the 27. Like, what? They challenged it? And
wait, the interview was with Josh Fields.
That's right. Former third baseman for the Chicago White Sox. He did actually play football, too, I think. But I might forget. In Oklahoma, I think he played both. But maybe. Yikes. It was a rough broadcast.
It was bad. It was, honestly, it kind of makes me feel like when you do these types of games, stop with the national stuff. Get the local guys in. I would love to hear
go ahead.
Tom Thayer and Jeff Joniak do it on TV.
There you go.
Right? Like the radio broadcast is so much better than the television broadcast for the most part.
Yeah. Well, what I'm wondering, so it was a Thursday night game, but that was their Monday Night Football crew. Yeah. And I think it was Levy, Louis Riddick, and
Dan
Orlovsky. But the sideline reporter, her name escapes me. She did not seem very good.
I'm not recalling her name either.
I'm sorry, I don't know her name. But is that their number one? Like, that's what they're running with in the season?
I mean, I know they lost Romo, right?
Yeah, they were going for the big names. Yeah. And I think Amazon is showing stuff this year. That's not... I don't know. We grew up. Monday Night Football was like appointment TV. Like I came home from school. Mondays suck, right? But Mondays did not suck because Monday Night Football was on.
Even when it was the comedian.
Oh, Dennis Miller.
Even that was good.
Well, he got in trouble for speaking his mind and bringing some things into the booth.
Before that,
yeah.
I mean, like it kind of played off.
That's about when it started.
Exactly. That is when it took a hit for the worst.
Sorry, I interrupted your.
That's pretty much where.
We're competing with ESPN, and they didn't raise the bar that high this week.
Eventually, we become the local broadcast guys.
Okay,
so that's a similar.
Can I suggest that sometime this year, and maybe our viewers can say if they'd like to hear this, but I'd love to just talk while the game's going, like kind of do a live broadcast of our response and reactions to the game.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to listen to the guys. Because last year, the Bears, when they play on Fox, they're getting like the number 5 crew, the number 6 crew, deservedly so.
Right.
Listen to us instead of listening to them. We're not going to do play-by-play, but we'll break down the game a little bit and throw some opinions in there.
Yeah, we can. I think we can throw up a live chat. We can maybe make like a link for people to like live chat with us. And
we got some ideas for the season. And that's the kind of stuff in our best-case scenario. Yeah, people are enjoying those types of things.
Exactly. Why do you want to watch the Manning brothers? Like, actually, I do like that.
That's cool. Fun. But that's a cool idea.
That's what I feel like it always should be, right? Like, that's just my opinion.
Niche TV.
Yeah.
So, okay. What's your worst case? Close us out with that.
All right. So, worst case, like I said, I'm a pessimist. So, I get dark. Okay. So, worst case scenario is we start to do well. And there's some success. And that success, it gets to one of us.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to point fingers, but it gets to one of us.
We probably both point fingers.
And no, I'm gonna throw it out there. Like
Okay.
I'm gonna get a big head.
Uh-huh.
It gets so bad that my wife leaves me.
Oh my.
I start embezzling money and I throw Justin under the bus.
Oh.
Because, I mean, let's face it, black guy, it's more likely you're going to be the one going to jail, right?
Yeah, I try very hard not to interact with the legal system at all. So thank you, Rob, for
I'm throwing
seeing how quick you're going to just throw me under. All right, thought we were friends, thought we were boys.
Well, that's part of it.
Okay, this is worst case.
Worst case. We are no longer obviously friends.
Oh.
I am now living on an island. I don't know which one that I can't be brought back here for.
No extradition?
Yeah, no extradition.
You've thought this through to some extent. I'm a little nervous here, but go ahead.
And I, have my, millions of dollars that I embezzled, and I'm living a nice life without my wife and kids, unfortunately. And that would be honestly the hardest part. But I have to throw this in there to save face, because if my wife will only listen to 6 minutes of our podcast anyway, and 2 to 3 minutes of that was just the intro music. So yeah, I know I'm safe. So she's never going to hear this.
Can I just point out that your worst case has you sipping pina coladas on a beach and me probably in prison? It sounds like it's the worst case for me and not so much the worst case for you. So, but as we said last week, neither our worst case nor best case are very likely to happen.
That's correct. And I would never trade you for $1 billion. So.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So, hopefully you guys are enjoying this show. There's a lot more coming. We got ideas. And this is just the preseason. So when the season gets going, I think one thing we want to do is turn these episodes around pretty quick here. So that, on your way to work, you just throw on the Monday morning podcast to hear about the game the night before or day before, I should say. And they're not getting too many night appearances.
No.
Unless they play well and start getting flexed in, but they're still a big market.
You got 3.
Yeah. But we want you all to just keep listening, keep watching. We'll get better as it goes on.
Yeah, leave some reviews. I would love, even if it's like critical, you can give me a 5-star review and still give me constructive criticism. I would really appreciate that. So I'm joking. You give whatever star review you want to give, but I would love to just hear hey, your audio. Hey, you guys are stupid. You don't know anything what you're talking about. Go be Packers fans. Whatever you want to say. Throw it in there. That's how we learn. That's how we grow.
That's absolutely right. So if you're critical of the show, it means you're listening, and we'll take that feedback.
Yeah.
So next preseason game is Cleveland. I don't know how much starters are going to play, but we talked about Fields needs to go in there.
0.
No, 0.
0.
Dude, we both agree. He has to take at least 1 snap.
0.
Because of the ghosts.
I know, but
that stadium,
PTSD.
What they did to him last year in Cleveland, 9 sacks.
Myles Garrett has to be the monster.
9 times. Dreams, right? 9 times.
Didn't he have 4 of them?
Oh, Myles Garrett?
Yeah. Maybe 5, 4.5, 5.
In the first quarter, maybe, first half. Did you get the 9 times reference?
Yeah, 9.
Huh? You don't get the reference?
9 times?
Yeah.
Actually, no, I thought it was 7 times.
Oh, he got sacked 9 times. 9 times.
No,
That's
not.
from Ferris Bueller.
Oh, okay.
Assistant Principal Rooney.
I thought you were going the Friends 7.
Oh, no, that's another reference. So first they were using that, then they kept sacking him. So anyway, we'll be back to break down week 3. Doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of starters, but there'll still be a lot to look for and talk about who the final cuts are going to be.
Yeah, we'll do roster cuts.
Yeah, who's going to make the final 53.
Yep.
So you can look forward to that in our next episode.
Sounds good. I appreciate everyone for listening. Bear down, as always.
All right. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Nice job, Rob.